You know, every single week, 11Alive viewers reach out desperate for help with their homeowners association, more commonly known as HOA. Well, it may start as a disagreement over maybe tall grass or a broken mailbox can quickly escalate into a court case, leaving the homeowner deep in debt, and in some cases, they even lose their home as well. That may sound extreme, but senior investigative reporter Rebecca Lindstrom has spent the past 7 years covering these complaints. So, Rebecca, are these concerns real?
Absolutely. Let's look at the facts. Data from the Foundation for Community Association Research says 21% or 2.3 million people in Georgia live in an HOA. There are more than 11,000 different HOAs in the state, and those associations collect more than $3.4 billion from residents last year. That means only 8 other states have more HOAs than Georgia. So this is a topic that impacts a lot of people.
Absolutely. So what are the main complaints that you're hearing out there on the streets?
In my experience, it really boils down to communication. As you can imagine, people can get defensive when you're telling them, hey, I know it's your house, but you're doing something wrong. So it is really how that message gets communicated that can make a difference. Many HOAs use property management companies, and they have a job to do. Part of that job is sending letters when they see violations, but sometimes people have a hard time getting someone to pick up the phone and explain exactly what is wrong or how they can even fix it. We covered a case out of Coweta County that really shows what can happen when that communication breaks down.
You guys don't trust me.
No, we don't. We don't.
It was a contentious meeting captured on Facebook. Homeowners frustrated with the leadership of their HOA and its property management company. Enrique Inostroza and his family can tell you why. Walk me through these papers. It's a familiar story. A zealous HOA board, management company, or law firm beats down residents to turn tall grass or a broken mailbox into a financial windfall from fines and interest.
Normal people, when they look at it, they get frustrated. Heck with it. They throw it away, whatever you say. But they're banking on us to do that.
But I did add up 10 years of annual dues and his HOA violations. And then I calculated how much he had actually paid. Inostroza didn't want to know.
No, because I didn't want to get frustrated.
That's because for about $3,200 in debt, he has paid nearly $12,000. And despite years of garnished wages and a bankruptcy court settlement, the HOA still wants $8,000 more. The bulk of it, late fees and interest that keep getting tacked on each month.
When there's no regulation, people take advantage of it. Take advantage of normal people. We don't know people to them. We just numbers. That's all this thing is, numbers.
What many don't realize is that legally, the HOA could foreclose on his home.
Everything is about the money. So somebody's making a lot of money off of allowing these HOAs to be out of control.
It doesn't have to be this way. Lawmakers in other states have tried to create some balance. At least 5 states don't allow HOAs to use fines, attorney fees, or community violations to foreclose on a house. Here in Georgia, Republicans just don't seem interested. How many Republicans serve on your study committee?
0.
Well, Senator Donzella James was able to get approval to study HOA reforms this year.
HOAs are foreclosing on homeowners at a record level at this point.
None of her efforts from previous sessions have gained momentum.
And I don't want it to be that we're just talking about it again. I want to make sure we do something to resolve the problems.
James wants to follow 3 other states and create an office to help mediate disputes before they get to court and the fees start to pile on. Jessica Neves says often the problem is simply communication.
Well, there's no way to contact the management company because they don't have a phone call.
There's no phone number.
There's no phone number, it's just email.
And it can take days, even months, to get a response. All the while, fees add up. And frustration grows.
The one who you talk in circles. You do, and you are the only one benefiting from this.
Navis and her husband started to organize residents in Belmont Park to fight back, sitting at kitchen tables.
That's all right. That's all right.
They have learned people like Robert Cardenas or the Inostrozas are not isolated cases.
If you're going to try to bully me to do something, I'm not going to do it.
And neither are the problems within their HOA.
If we are united And if we speak up, being part of a change, that's what I want.
Well, you can see why those folks are frustrated. Folks, we should also point out their story caught the eye of State Senator Matt Brass, and he asked for a study committee and recently held a couple of listening sessions to learn how the HOAs were actually working. So how did that go, Rebecca?
I have to give the lawmakers a lot of credit because they allowed these committee meetings to go for hours, just really listening to what homeowners and even those who are in the industry had to say. And during those, we did hear from an attorney who represents a lot of HOAs here in Georgia. We heard from a lobbyist who works for a large property management company, and they both told lawmakers that the rules in the books are actually pretty good, and that if you don't like your HOA, well, you can just elect new members to the board. They also said that if your HOA isn't working the way that you think it should, or you think that there's something illegal going on, that you can always take them to court. But the homeowners then stood up and said, you know, all of that sounds great. That would work great, but first it requires the HOAs to be following the rules that are already on the books. And you might think, well, of course, they're all following the rules, right?
You would hope.
Yeah, but take a look at what happened when that neighborhood that we first told you about decided to fight back. Fighting frivolous fees from your homeowners association should not lead to vulgar letters in the mail or a physical feud when you demand accountability.
Do not touch me.
I didn't touch you.
These are stories we have shared on 11Alive. Now the chair of the bipartisan Senate subcommittee says it is listening.
HOA is just really can be a tool, but like all tools, there can be good ones, and they can be used for good or for bad.
State Senator Matt Brass says he requested the committee after hearing from David Bazzone and his wife.
I had no idea the Pandora's box that this HOA thing was going to be.
11Alive first talked with this Coweta County couple last October. Since then, a neighbor has been arrested for damaging their security camera after walking through their yard with a knife, sprinkling some kind of powder. Do you worry for your safety?
Every day I step outside.
Homeowners told lawmakers they were driven into costly legal battles to fight mysterious fines, liens, and discrimination.
I can't afford a $30,000 lawsuit.
State Senator Donzella James has tried before to create an office in Georgia to educate homeowners, guide boards, and resolve disputes outside of court. Her bill has never made it out of committee.
More of us, more legislators are listening now. We're now hearing it from all over the state.
Now, I heard Senator Brass say that more people are listening, and you've been doing these stories for years. Are people actually being heard?
I don't know. I mean, we're really going to have to see how the next legislative session goes, because you've got Democrats who have been really pushing this for years now. You've got Senator Matt Brass. He is a Republican. So you do have people on both sides of the aisle really for the first time saying that this is an issue and we need to do something about it. We're just going to have to see how far that traction goes. In Georgia, HOAs can foreclose on your house as soon as you owe them more than $2,000. And that can be money from failing to pay your dues, fines for covenant violations like building a fence without permission, or even legal fees. So one of the things I think we are going to see in the next session is really a look at how do we limit those foreclosures? Do we look at the fines for the tall grass for the mailboxes?
Right.
Do we allow that to be used in the foreclosure, or do we just say no, these foreclosures can only be for failing to pay the dues? Those things that we need the money for to keep the lifeguard, at the pool, to get the sign at the entrance, cleaned and restored and looking the way that we want so that we maintain our property values. I think that is going to be something that we're going to be seeing lawmakers talk about. So I want to share a story that I did years ago that really shows just how confusing all of this math and who you foreclose on and who you don't, how confusing all of that really can be. In 2010, Patricia Quigley, upset with her HOA's billing process, decided to take a stand and refuse to pay her dues, about $700 that year. But that only led to letters from Lozega and Johansson, the law firm hired to collect on the debt. And that debt had grown.
Walked in, paid him the $2,700, and when I walked out, I said, "This is all I owe, right?" Yes.
But it wasn't all you owed.
No.
Shortly after, she received another bill for $3,000. She called and sent letters trying to figure out why. But all Quigley says she got in return were cryptic statements, dates with amounts that didn't make any sense to her.
Then here comes the next set of letters. and now it's up to $6,400.
Turns out there were post-judgment legal fees and 18% back interest. So even after she'd paid more than $9,000, she was still somehow behind on her dues. But in 2018, she received the most shocking letter of all, an eviction notice.
You know, you lose your home. That's hard.
But sadness turned to anger when she realized the HOA had purchased her home through foreclosure for $3.24 a year before she was evicted. So you had been living in your house for a year, but you didn't legally own your house.
No.
Quigley says not only did the HOA accept her dues payment on a house she apparently did not own, but allowed her to make another $4,600 in home loan payments before getting kicked out. She paid a debt she did not own.
Yes, that's for sure, and they don't have to give it back.
Attorney George Nowak has helped craft Georgia's HOA laws since the 1980s. He says Quigley's story is tragic, but it is a tragedy of her own making.
It doesn't happen
In
a back room, in blue smoke and mirrors.
Nowak says the HOA can't win a judgment until the homeowner owes at least $2,000. The court must perform a title search, have the foreclosure posted in the paper for a month, and the homeowner served.
They brought this on because they ignored all of the requests to pay. They didn't show up at the trial most times.
You want some more?
Quigley admits she never did go to court, not understanding the process or the stakes involved. According to the Community Association Institute, 6 states have some type of ombudsman to help educate and facilitate these discussions, and several states require mediation before a lawsuit is filed. Georgia isn't one of them.
A lot of times, people can't afford to fight. They just have to walk away.
I can't believe that she had to go through something like that.
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking when you hear their stories. And admittedly, she said there were letters, there were notifications, there were things that she should have responded to, but a lot of people in that moment just don't understand. They don't get the gravity of what's in front of them. And then if they're like making phone calls and they're fighting to get answers and information, they think, well, they're going to call me back before they go to court or before they really have any leverage to try to take my home. And really, you don't pay your dues, that's it. I mean, that's the law. If you haven't paid your dues, any arguments thereafter to justify your actions don't carry much weight with a judge. Now, that story first aired 5 years ago, and I could have done that story today because absolutely nothing has changed in our laws. And so lawmakers, I think they're going to keep hearing more and more of these stories, and it's going to be harder for them to look the other way. Of course, we're not done with covering HOAs. We're going to tell you what is up next after the break.
All right, welcome back, everyone. So you said that more than 2 million people in Georgia actually are part of some sort of HOA, which I'm part of an HOA. So it shouldn't be all that bad, right?
I live in one as well. I think it's pretty great. But the Foundation for Community Association Research says in its latest national survey that 86% felt living in an HOA has been a positive experience. So you're right, lots of people do enjoy them. They do feel like their board is working in their best interests. We know that boards do thousands of hours of volunteer work, but a board is only as good as the people who are in it, and there is no required training. Some of these boards, they're huge. The communities, the HOAs, the condo associations, they're pretty big. And so their budgets can be more than $1 million. That is a lot of money to manage. And so the question here is, how do you add in accountability without a costly court battle when something really isn't going the way that it should?
That's right, especially that's a lot of money to manage as well, depending upon the HOA. So you mentioned the upcoming legislative session. Anything specific you're looking into?
We kind of talked earlier about that division of money and what you can use to foreclose on a home. So I've been trying to figure out how do we really get at the heart of how often that's happening, if it's happening, you know, at all. And so I have been spending a lot of time in the DeKalb County Court, and I've been looking at the civil lawsuits and going through them and pulling all of the judicial foreclosure requests and then reading those reports to try to see how many of those involved problems with the mailboxes and the fines and the fees and the attorney fees that just kind of added on and snowballed, and how many of those are people who just decided, I'm not paying my dues.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, maybe a medical hardship, or maybe they decided to take a stand and they just don't want to pay HOA dues. But how many of those relate to fees? How many of those relate to dues? So that when lawmakers are having that discussion, we can really add some context to it and let people know how that kind of change might impact our community.
And we really appreciate all the work that you do. We really do, and I'm sure that a lot of our viewers out there as well. By the way, folks, if you want to learn a lot more about what has been taking place here, we have a lot more content just like this on 11Alive Plus. Just head to the news section and scroll to 11Alive News Investigates. That's where you're going to find the latest stories and exclusive content.
And we hope you will join us again for more exclusive looks inside 11Alive News Investigates. Take care.
If you have a tip for Rebecca Lindstrom and the 11Alive Investigates team, call us at 404-873-9111 or email investigates@11alive.com. All calls and correspondence will be kept confidential.